Good morning and happy Saturday. So we kind of like started back from the beginning yesterday as to when you're just starting out, or even if you're not just starting out, when it's time to start over, when it's time to go to the next thing, where do you go? Well, the first thing that you got to do is you got to raise your standards. And we talked about that yesterday. You've got to decide that you're going to live life at a different level. If you want to do more, if you want to create more, then you have to become more. Remember, success isn't something that we go seek, it's something that we attract. And we do that by raising our standards, by operating at a different level. If you keep doing the same thing, you're going to get the same result. So if you want to create a different result, then you've got to become better. So the second thing is, what happens if you've got these amazing standards that you're going to go out and you're going to change the world? Well, next there's got to be a belief that you can actually do that. And that's the main thing that can hold us back once we decide to set these large goals, is that we don't have a belief that we can achieve them. The real difference between, a guy like a Walt Disney and somebody that we've never heard of, was he a genius? Well, sure. I mean, he was a genius, but the real thing that he had was he had an unbelievable belief in what he could accomplish. I saw the partner for now I can't remember his name. Charlie Younger, the guy that's the Berkshire Hathaway partner. He's 94 years old, and he still is operating that company. They asked him about a year ago about Tesla, and they said, what do you think about that stock, and would you invest in that stock? That's Warren Buffett's partner. Well, of course, they only invest in stocks that they can truly understand. They buy things like Coca-Cola and they buy things like banks. And so Charlie Younger said, we've never invested in a stock like Tesla because that's just not what we do. And that's not to say that it's bad, but that's not what we do. And then somebody asked, well, could you evaluate that stock? Because the stock, the company doesn't make a lot of money, but the stock is worth huge amounts of money. What do you think of that? And Charlie Younger's response was this. He says, I learned a lesson when I was trying to figure out what to do with Walt Disney, with that company's stock, when Walt was just starting. And I was giving this piece of advice from somebody who at that time had known Thomas Edison, because of course he's talking about in the 1950s. And so one of his advisors, one of Charlie Younger's mentors, because Charlie's 94, told him, I learned something watching a guy like Thomas Edison. Never underestimate a genius who overestimates himself. So the real thing that Disney and Elon and Steve and Michael and all of these people have is they have a belief in their ability to achieve things. And that belief is probably more powerful than even their genius. And what is a belief? A belief is a feeling of certainty. That's all it is. It's like a table with legs. If you've got a table with 4 legs and it's nice and sturdy, then that's your belief. But is it possible to have an absolute belief that suddenly is gone? Well, sure. I mean, if back when Thomas Edison was inventing the light bulb, you believed that mankind would go to the moon, you might be called a lunatic. Lunar, moon, that's one of the sources of that word. I mean, remember back when we believed that the world was flat. Remember when we believed that this earth was the center of the universe. So there's all kinds of beliefs that we've had that have now gone away. I was talking to somebody the other day. As I was walking out of City Hall, I was in a meeting regarding a building that I'm renovating in downtown Freeport, and it was an older person, and he was saying, this isn't going to happen, and that's not going to happen, and I disagreed with him, and I said, how do you know that? And he goes, well, that's just never going to be that way. And I said, did you ever think that we'd be wearing masks standing here talking, that we'd be wearing masks inside City Hall? And he said, no. I said, I never thought that would happen either, but here we are. So a belief is what can completely hold you back. You can have all the standards in the world, but if you don't believe that something is achievable for you, then it's never going to happen. And that belief is something that you can absolutely change. A belief is like a thermostat. So imagine that, let's say with finances, imagine that, we have a thermostat for our life, that our life needs to be set at 72. And if we start not doing as well, if that thermostat starts getting colder, if all of a sudden we're at about 67, 68, well, we start working. We always figure out a way to pay the bills that are musts. We always figure out a way to pay our rent, to pay our mortgage, to pay our car, to pay for our kid to have, we figure out the musts. But sometimes if that thermostat goes up higher, if all of a sudden we're cranking and we're cooking along and we get up to like 78, now what can happen is unconsciously we can start to cool things off because that gets uncomfortable for us. It's like, do I really deserve all of this? And so we start to calm things down. So once you have the standards, the second thing that you've got to do is you've got to change your limiting beliefs. You've got to get rid of those beliefs that say to your unconscious mind, this is not possible. Marley's talking to me. Good morning. Say good morning. Why are you getting excited? So you got to start working on that unconscious belief. And we're going to talk about a lot of things again as to how to do that. But remember, incantations are a great way to do that. Meditation and visualization is a tremendous way to do that. But a great way to impact both standards and beliefs is to get around successful people. Is to get around people who are more successful than you, have higher standards than you, and have accomplished more than you. I think one of the advantages to, if you were to take a look at like my life and you would say, well, I came from a bunch of lawyers and when I graduated from law school, I walked right into a law firm and immediately I was a partner in the law firm. And that's a tremendous advantage. I knew that I was going to go to college and I knew that I was going to go to law school. And I knew that the finances for those things were going to be taken care of. Even though my dad made me pay towards that stuff. Even though my dad made me work like crazy. Even though still, that's a tremendous advantage. But I was talking to somebody else the other day about this idea. And I said, what I think was a much bigger advantage was my access to people who were significantly successful at a very young age. When I was very young, I was hanging around federal judges and very successful people. And when you have that opportunity, you then see that it's attainable. You then see that that's not something that seems so foreign. Howard Stern's dad ran a recording studio and was around very, very successful radio people early on in his life. And his dad didn't have standards to want to be the king of all media, but Howard did. He didn't fit in high school. He didn't fit in anywhere. And when he saw these people that his dad was working for, he decided, I want to become one of those. Bon Jovi's dad worked, I think, as a maintenance guy, but he worked in a radio station around a recording studio in New Jersey where all of the top rock people would show up. And so John Bon Jovi, as a little kid, was there writing songs, and he would have Aerosmith and Boston and the Rolling Stones and all these bands come in, and they would encourage him. They would tell him, hey, go ahead, kid, you can do this stuff, kid. Well, when you have access, that changes your beliefs in terms of what is actually accomplishable for you. So one of the greatest ways to get to those beliefs and to change them is to get around people who've achieved those big results. And now with technology, you don't have to get around them physically. You can join masterminds, you can do videos like this, you can study them through biographies, And the great thing is when you see a lot of the stuff, you'll find out that they started out basically just the same way that you did, or they started out with less. But what they had was they had a belief, they had a goal, and they had drive, and they drove towards that drive. So number one, we got to have high standards, but then number two, we've got to work on those limiting beliefs and understand that any belief can be eliminated at any time. It's just a feeling of certainty. All you got to do is sweep those legs. You know, we had beliefs about what could happen on an airplane, and then 9/11 happened, and suddenly all of those beliefs completely changed. We had all kinds of beliefs about what was possible with a piece of technology, and then all of a sudden, look what I'm holding in my hand. You know, the way that things have changed in the last 15 years alone is astonishing, and here we are. So, second thing to do, number one, set your standards. Number two, what are the beliefs that are holding you back? Write them down, and then start to question them. Why do you have this belief? Where did it come from? Most of the time, our beliefs are given to us in a very bizarre way. Somebody said something when we were younger, and it stuck. Maybe it's a limiting belief from your parents that your parents have because they were trying to protect you, so they wanted to try to keep you safe, so they said you should stay in this arena. Find out what these beliefs are and where they came from, and then understand that any belief at any time can go away. And just because you have a belief now that something is going to be a certain direction doesn't mean that that's going to be there. And if you're going to achieve amazing results in your life, one of the things that has to happen is those beliefs have to go away. So over the next several weeks, we're going to talk about those ideas again and the different tools and ways to get rid of them. Just for now, know those beliefs are there, find them, and start to question them. And that's why incantations and doing videos like this and surrounding yourself with the right people will help you out. Have a great Saturday, everybody. As you can see, we got stuff behind us. We're going to have some people over and outside social distance. It's going to be hot and beautiful. We're all in this together. Let's take care of each other.